Hello BookTube, my name is Dennis and welcome back to the Intellectual Reads. Today I am bringing in a new concept that I thought I would do, which I'm gonna title Read, Reading, and Ready. I would love to put out a video of this kind once a month, at the end of the month or at the beginning of the month, where I will be talking about the books that I read and finished in the last month, discussing the books I'm currently working on, as well as things that I'm looking forward to picking up in the new month. So, without further ado, let's get to the video. In terms of the books that I read and finished, I only finished 2 books. But I started off January with a clean slate, so there was no books coming in from the year before. And therefore I have only finished 2 books, but I'm working and almost done with a couple more, which we will discuss in this segment of reading. So without further ado, let's get to what I've read. I read The First Circle by Solzhenitsyn. I have a full review of it up that I did in the beginning of January, which I will link in the section down below. You will notice that it's a different book in that section, and it was a book that was too beat up to keep, so I went out to Shrans and I picked up this copy for $7.50. Even though I'm not supposedly buying any new books this year, having read this, it felt more like an exchange rather than a purchase, since I got rid of my old copy that was too beat up to keep up, as I said. I would encourage you guys to check out the review that I did in this video, because I go really in depth on the book. But I wanted to kind of say one thing and feature it here in the idea of what has stood out to me with this book since I last read it. Now that a couple of weeks have passed by, and the one thing I would say is that when I came into this book, I thought it was going to be a book about life in a highly intellectual jail. But this book turned out to be so much more and really encapsulated the life of all of Moscow during Stalin's rule. I gave this book 5 stars, and if you want to hear more about it, please look down in the description section where I will link my review to it. Also, I noticed that a lot more people watch summaries and TBRs and whatnot, so perhaps you came as a new viewer to my channel, which I want to welcome you, of course, and would encourage you to subscribe, and will also encourage you to watch the video if you are interested in Russian literature. My first Russian lit of the year, and I plan to do a lot more Russian literature in the upcoming months. The second book that I finished was Long Bright River by Liz Moore, and this is a story of 2 sisters focusing on the outside view of the opioid epidemic that has overtaken a small town outside of Philadelphia, and it discusses life, the difficulties of being addicted to the opioid epidemic, and is a very heartwarming story as well of family. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars, and I did a review of it. This was my second Liz Moore book. I read The Unseen World a couple of years ago, and I was not disappointed in this book that I was so looking forward to reading. Again, I also did a review of it, a standalone review, which I will link in the section down below. So now on to the books that I'm currently reading. And I have this thing where I love to be immersed in a large novel. To me, the bigger the book, the better. I enjoy large masterworks, so to speak. And a book that is over 500 pages is right up my alley. But in between these masterpieces and these large works that I often find myself amidst, I love to read essays. I love to read non-fiction works about writing, having to do with writing, because it lets me permeate on the book that I just finished and lets me think about it more deeply, while at the same time reading small pieces and acquiring new knowledge in kind of short bursts. And one of the books that I've been reading this month in between is The Bad Side of Books. These are selected essays of D.H. Lawrence. And as you know, I did a review of a book of his, Women in Love, last year, and I have tackled all of his major works, which are Sons and Lovers, The Rainbow, Women in Love, and Miss Chatterley's Lover. So I've also read some of his short stories, some poetry, but these are just essays of his that he wrote. He was a very prolific writer, and he is one of my favorite writers. I would definitely put him in the top 5 if I did that tag where people did the favorite authors tag. But these essays are phenomenal. If you are a writer or you enjoy a writer discussing his interpretations of other people's works, if you love just the encouragement to go out there and do things, he is a very live now author. He is all about risk taking and approaching the world as if the world was meant to be explored. And so you get a lot of his life in Italy, you get a lot of his life in New Mexico in these essays, and you also get a lot of in-depth book discussions. And I love literary essays, especially by authors that I have read and I admire, because to me they're like intellectual journal entries. So sign me up for some more. And I'm about 346 pages in. I have about 100 pages left, and I can't rave enough about this book. Another short book that I'm reading, which is Dreyer's English, and this is all about grammatics, about writing correctly, and improving your writing style. This book, surprisingly, is very comedic. It is entertaining, lighthearted, and I think that if people wrote like Benjamin Dreyer, a lot of high school students would enjoy grammar that much more. I'm thoroughly enjoying this, and if you are a writer or your work demands that you write, whether it's essays, I don't know, cover letters, whatever it may be, you can't go wrong with this, because I think it will not only improve you as a person, but also make you a more productive person in the work environment. And finally, for reading, I am currently tackling The Man with the Golden Arm. This is a book by Nelson Algren, and a biography of his that was published last year, made the top 5 books that I read in 2019. And this is kind of a book that is also dealing with the drug addiction of morphine, very similar to The Long Bright River that I finished this year. But this is a more inside kind of book. This is a book about a soldier who has returned to Chicago and is fighting an addiction to morphine. His life inside the alcohol addiction, his life inside of the morphine addiction. His alcohol addiction has led to his wife now being for life in a wheelchair, don't drink and drive. And his morphine addiction has kept him inside and outside of jail cells. There's a lot of blaming going on here. He blames his wife for his current morphine addiction, and he kind of blames the army as well and the hard life he has lived. I am really enjoying Nelson Algren's writing style. It's very authentic. You really get an idea of the environment. The speech of the characters here is very old and Chicago-like, and I just think that this is a great view on what kind of the morphine addiction that surrounded him in the worser areas of Chicago where he lived had encouraged him to write a masterpiece on the issues that our soldiers and poor people were dealing with during these times. This book was a National Book Award winner, and this is the 50th anniversary critical edition. So I'm about 264 pages in. I believe it's about 340, and then you get different authors' essays about Nelson Algren himself and about the book. So I'm excited to read more essays about Nelson Algren. As I said, this author and his biography really captivated me. I think he's a very interesting person. I mean, besides the many literary friends he had, besides his affair with Simone de Beauvoir that spanned ages, I'm all about a person who had to struggle his whole life and then thought to have his fiction not only depict his own struggles, but stand up for the beaten man. Once I'm done with all these essays and I'm done with the book, which I have less than 100 pages left to do, I am 100% definitely going to review it in February. So if you want to pick up an author that Hemingway considered to be in the top echelon, he ranked him up there with Faulkner, and eventually towards his later years described him as being an even better author than Faulkner. So if you like that kind of old, beaten down American literature, I would definitely recommend you pick up a book of Nelson Algren's. In terms of what I plan to read in February and at least pick up and start, that is Ardor or Ardor by Nabakov. Funny story, I was going to read Demons this month, but on Friday I went to work and I forgot to take a book with me. And I always keep a book in my car, 100% always, because I hate when I have a day at work which is rather slow and I don't have a book to read and I'm just wasting my time on YouTube. It annoys the living hell out of me. So I always keep a book in my car, and it just so happened that this Friday I did not have a book, and I'm about 18 pages in here. So I'm gonna read Ardor or Ardor by Vladimir Nabakov. I feel like his books get more and more difficult in terms of his writing style as they progress. For example, I reviewed The King, Knave and Queen at the end of last year, and that book was a rather easy book to get through. But I found myself really, I don't want to say struggling because I enjoy his writing style so much, but really having to work to get through those 18 pages. And I'm gonna definitely be reading this in February. It's a complex story of a Russian family and a American family meeting in a small town, and you have two brothers who marry two sisters, but the affair between one sister and one brother, this is all very confusing and I'm trying to put it together into words. So basically, one brother shagged this female character, Marina, but amidst her cheating as an actress with somebody else, he decided that he did not want to marry her, and so he marries her sister instead, which causes Marina, our actress, to marry his brother. And there's this idea of two children discovering that Marina's affair may have made the daughter Ada actually be fathered by the other brother that then she is married to. And then eventually this book's supposed to really delve into incest. And I think that the brother, and I think eventually we're going to have a blooming affair between the son of one couple with the daughter of the other, and the fact that they may be related more closely than we think. Anyway, I don't really know what's going to happen. That's kind of the impression I'm getting from the 18 pages. His writing is beautiful. He's always focusing on taboo sexual relationships, I feel like, and he's just so smart and writes so beautifully that I think the kind of topics that we wouldn't want to necessarily discuss in society and consider them taboo, so therefore we don't talk about them. I think the beauty in his prose allows us to open a new chapter on topics you would rather keep closed. So I really appreciate him not only for his writing style, but the kind of in-depth ideas that he makes one think about that we usually would rather keep hidden somewhere in a dark place. The final two books that I'm going to feature in my Ready section to be read in February are two books that came to me from NYRB, as I am a subscriber to their classical literature that they put out, and they ship me a book a month of new and upcoming books that they are publishing. And so the two books are The Simple Past by Driss, Chribi. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the name correctly. And then we have The Free Day by Ines Cagnati. From what I read, The Simple Past is often compared to The Stranger, Albert Camus. If you haven't read Albert Camus, I would definitely recommend him as an author, and I myself have read quite a few of his works. This book comes from Morocco, and it is about a young man who's in high school and trying to deal with his father's authoritative rule in the family atmosphere, as well as rebelling against French control of Morocco, especially rebelling against the language of French that they are forced to speak. I'm excited to read a Moroccan book, because I don't believe that I read many books from this region, if any at all, and a book that has stood the time and that NYRB has chose to republish. I am very excited about bringing new authors to my horizon, so I will be picking this up in February. And the last book is Free Day by Ines Cagnati, and this is dealing with similar themes that I have read about in D.H. Lawrence works. And this is about a girl who travels on a battered bicycle 20 miles twice a month. From high school, she attends on scholarship back to her family, and her mother would like her to stay home and take care of her raging father and provide some help in calming him down so that the mother doesn't have to take all of that upon herself. While the girl clearly wants to study and fight for a better life for herself. And so she's caught in this conflict between going to school and staying home. And this is a rather short work, but this covers themes that I'm very interested in, and it's about family versus self-ambition. So I will be planning to pick this up and stay ahead of the curve with the NYRB books that keep coming into my household from my subscription. Again, thank you for watching this video. Sorry for the length of it. I know it's quite long. I will list all the books I've discussed if you want to jump around with a timestamp in the section down below. If any of you are interested in some more than others, please do click on that timestamp. And remember that I will be putting up reviews of these videos in the upcoming month, as well as I would love to see you stick around. So there's a nice subscribe button that you could click, and I'm always looking to communicate. I love comments, so if you want to leave a quick comment, that would be greatly appreciated. And I wish you all a pleasant reading month in February, and hope to hear from what amazing works you have read that you would love to share. And I know a lot of people who come to my channel have subscribers, so I am definitely looking forward to the videos that you guys will be putting out, that I will be watching. And if you don't have a channel and you wish to engage in a nice conversation with me, I am always willing to. So happy reading month, and see you guys soon.